What's the first thing that you think about when you think of King's Hawaiian rolls? Soft, buttery, sweet, pillowy, absolutely delicious, right? But what if I told you you can make these in your very own home? Now, I spent the last 5 years trying to perfect this recipe just for you. So stay tuned as I show you how to make my sweet buns.
Hey, yo!
Now, I just want to set the record straight. There's nothing wrong with buying King's Hawaiian buns from the store. They're easily accessible, and like I said, I eat them myself. But part of being a chef for me is to challenge myself into learning how to make things at home. And when I learn something or have any general knowledge, I'm going to share it with you because that's what this channel is all about. And I'm not above being taught a technique or two, so if you see any of my videos and have any suggestions on what works for you, feel free to share them in the comments. Now that we've gotten that out the way, let's make some Hawaiian rolls. To get started, we're going to make tenzong. Now, if you never heard this term before, let me break it down for you. Tenzong is the method used to make your bread softer, more moist, and keeps it fresher for a longer period of time. The traditional method of making it combines water and bread flour, although I like to add a little bit of milk into the pot as well. When combined, it creates this gelatinous paste that goes right into the mixing process. For this recipe, I've got a pot turned on medium heat and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of bread flour. Once that's added, I'm immediately going to pour in 2 tablespoons of whole milk into that same pot. You can see it starting to heat up. Next, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of room temperature water, and once that's added in, quickly we're going to mix all of these ingredients together until it forms a paste. It won't take very long for this to form, so make sure you keep your eyes on it at all times. Once that paste begins to form, you can remove it from the heat to avoid it from scalding. We can put this to the side and get ready for step 2 of this recipe. Our dough is going to need a way to rise, and that begins with adding half a cup of whole milk and then half a cup of pineapple juice into this bowl. When combined, you want to make sure that they don't exceed a temperature of 105 degrees as the yeast won't rise. So I recommend heating them up to get to that temperature. From there, I added 2 tablespoons of active dry yeast. You can do instant, but the temperature in my kitchen is rather warm, so active works fine, followed by a tablespoon of honey. Now I'm going to mix this until well combined and place to the side while I get my dry ingredients ready. Now any baker will tell you to measure ingredients in grams for accuracy, but I know most of y'all might not have a food scale at home. So for the sake of inclusivity, I'm going to share these measurements for both grams and cups. First, I'm going to zero out my food scale and add in 540 grams or about 4.5 cups of bread flour. And it's important that you use bread flour because it has a high percentage of protein than all-purpose flour. That just means it can develop gluten at a better rate, give it a better rise, and has a chewier texture. Plus, it has all these benefits as well. I would also reserve about a cup of that flour to the side, and I'll show you why in a bit. But first, let's get the rest of those ingredients together. In that same bowl, remembering to zero out your food scale, we're going to add 55 grams or a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, followed by that same amount of melanated sugar. And you can't have a good bread without some seed dandruff. It's going to provide some balance to all that sweetness because we have plenty of that from you watching my videos. And hey, while you're at it, how about clicking on that subscribe button if you haven't already? I post videos practically daily, whether short form or long form, and they're all centered around a shared experience of cooking and community. So if you're into that sort of thing, stick around and let's build something together. Thanks for the love. Let's get back to cooking. Now you're going to add 5 grams or 1 teaspoon of that seed dandruff to the bowl, and let's place that to the side. Now I'm adding the flour, salt, and sugars to my stand mixer, putting on the hook attachment, and we're going to run this at a speed of about 4 or 5, keeping it medium to mix all those ingredients. Now this is where we can start adding in our wet ingredients. Now the recipe does require eggs, so we're going to start with 1 whole egg followed by 1 egg yolk. Remember to add those eggs in one at a time to allow it to mix properly without curdling your mixture. Now once that's added, go ahead and add in the yeast mixture. Mixing dough is a lot like a friend in need. You could just sit there and let the problem sort itself out, or you could be kind and give them a helping hand. So while the stand mixer can incorporate that dough, just take a plastic spatula like so and help it a bit by scraping that flour on the side down to the center of the bowl. Remember to get underneath to help scrape it up a bit. Now once we do that, you can see that the dough is starting to formulate and it's looking a little bit loose and sticky. At this point, add in 4 tablespoons of unsalted softened butter. Now similar to adding eggs, do this 1 tablespoon at a time to allow it to fully incorporate. Remember that baking is a science. Cooking foods like pasta and chicken, there's always room to make adjustments. For baking, you have to be precise because even the slightest mess up can ruin your final product. Now, remember earlier when I said that you want to reserve some of that flour? This is the reason why. The mixture is still kind of wet and we need it to form a ball of dough that's somewhat sticky but manageable. So after all that butter is incorporated, just add a little bit of flour at a time until it fully incorporates and turns into a ball of dough just like this. Now that we've got our dough, we need for it to rest up. It's had a busy afternoon and it needs a nap to get big and strong. But to do that first, we're going to flour our work surface and place that dough on top of it. I like to pull the dough out from all four corners and fold it into itself, rolling into a ball. Make sure that as you roll, you tuck the dough underneath itself like so. Do this for a few minutes until that dough becomes nice and smooth. Also, make sure you clean up after yourselves. That's pretty self-explanatory. Now I'm taking a glass bowl or whatever bowl you use, this is just for the visuals, and I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil to it. This will prevent the dough from sticking when rising. Then we're going to place that dough into the bowl. I'm covering it first with plastic wrap so when it rises it doesn't stick to the towel, and then I'll place a towel over it. Now this needs to go into the warmest environment in your kitchen, so I would recommend either the top of your fridge or preheat your oven to the warm setting for a minute, turn it off, and then place the bowl into the oven. We're going to let this rise for an hour or until it doubles in size. Our dough has waken up from its nap. And like any good dough, now as you can see, the dough has doubled in size, so now we can form our King's Hawaiian roll. Now using the food scale again, you can measure out your dough and then divide as you wish for whatever the need is. If you don't have a food scale, just cut it up into even pieces. I'm making burger buns, so I'm going with 9 rolls, which is roughly 128 to 129 grams each. If you want the smaller, more traditional size, just divide this number by 12. Now, as you can see, to make it easier, I divided my dough into individual pieces, and I'll take those pieces to form my balls of dough. Putting the dough on the food scale, I can see that it measures out to be about 131 grams. You could take off a piece or two until you get to your desired gram amount. It's perfectly fine because we can just piece it back together later. And once we get to that 128, 129 mark, similar to how we rolled out the larger ball of dough, we're going to stretch out all 4 corners of the dough and then fold it into itself, rolling into a ball. Remember to tuck the dough underneath itself to ensure that when it proofs or bakes, it doesn't collapse on itself. I'm going to grease up a casserole dish to put the balls of dough in, and once they're all rolled up and placed in the dish, I'm going to place a piece of parchment paper on top and then a towel to let it proof for an hour. Now after an hour, we can see that they've risen quite a bit, and after any nap, you need a bath, so let's hit it with some egg wash. No, this isn't a sunny side up egg, it's a combination of 1 tablespoon of whole milk and 1 whole egg yolk. This is going to help our buns get that nice golden brown color once baked. Now after brushing all of your buns, and this part is optional, I'm just going to add a sprinkling of flaky salt to the top of the buns for flavor. And once that's done, this is going to go into a preheated oven at 375 degrees for 20 to 25 minutes. Your bread should come out looking golden brown and beautiful and reach an internal temperature of 190 degrees. And just look at that, they come out looking absolutely perfect. I got a little hungry and decided to use them to make a couple of turkey burgers. Nothing fancy, just toasted the buns. Then I added a little bit of my burger sauce to the bun. Next I added some spicy pickles. You gotta have your greens, so you're gonna add some fresh arugula. We're gonna add some freshly sliced tomatoes, and make sure you top them with some sea dandruff. They do need some seasoning. I added my turkey patties next, and then you gotta add a little bit more sauce, and finally, that top bun. Now, if you want the full recipe, check out the description below for more information. As always, thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel, and until the next time we feast, peace.